Chief Children's Commissioner is calling for regular, publicly reported data about bullying in schools, as one teachers' union highlights blind spots in the current approach. Claire Ahmed said bullying is something schools, communities and the government need to address. She says children and young people frequently tell her that their education is important to them, but because of feeling unsafe due to being bullied, it's a big barrier. A report published by the Education Review Office last year called for classroom behaviour to become a priority and a more national approach to worsening behaviour. A quarter of principals say they're seeing students physically harm others and damage or take property at least every day. But the Ministry of Education says while it supports schools to develop bullying prevention and response approaches that work for them, it is not mandatory to report bullying to the ministry, nor do they have plans to introduce reporting requirements. The Commissioner says she's keen to see regular, publicly reported data about bullying in schools. PPTA President Chris Abercrombie admits there are some blind spots in the current approach to bullying, and he joins me now. Chris, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Chris, to me, it's a bit of a no-brainer because schools are required to report absenteeism. Isn't bullying a real problem and has been for some time? Why would the ministry not want data on that?
Well, bullying is a concern in our schools, and you say there's been several reports to indicate it. The real reason is that there's 2,500 self-governing schools in this country, so that's 2,500 bullying policies, approaches to dealing with bullying. There's just so much variability within the system right now that it would be impossible to get national data on it.
Oh, okay. So you did mention the blind spots in the current approach. Is that what you're talking about? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so because the New Zealand school system is the most evolved school system in the world, each school is responsible for their own policies on this area of bullying. So School A might have a different policy than School B about bullying and how to deal with it. What even is bullying might be a different response. And so until we get some national consistency, we can't really have national data.
Right. So Chris, we would need a definition in bullying that would need to be agreed on, correct?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm sure if we got 10 different people in the room, we'd all have 10 different definitions of what bullying actually is, you know. But also, it's so different than when I was at school back in the 80s and 90s. Like, no one rang up my landline to tell my mum, you know, hello, Mrs. Abercrombie, can you please put on Chris so I could bully him? You know, and it's just so our young people are dealing with it 24/7. And, you know, the cell phone ban has been helpful in that area, but, you know, the kids are only at school for so long and their cell phones are at home and their social media, etc. So it's a really complicated issue, way more complicated than when we were at school.
So, okay, I see what you're saying. Each school is tasked with, you know, self-governing their approach to bullying. It's not impossible though, is it, Chris? I mean, if the schools put in their definitions and then you kind of get it to all the schools put in what they see as bullying, could you not agree on like a top 10 or a top 20?
It's definitely not. It's definitely not impossible, but it would have to take some leadership from the ministry. And the other thing about this is there's no real national response to bullying and how to deal with it. So the closest we have is this program called Positive Behaviour for Learning. Now, this is a really successful program. So it's just a system of, you know, each school, it's about rewards and tracking and understanding behaviours and what's happening in your school. And it's a really successful program. But like a lot of successful programs, the funding has been decreasing for that program over the years. And that was really our only clear national one. But not everyone did that as well. Not every school took part in that program. And so if we want to sort of deal with it at a national level, we need a national program, a national approach to it.
How significant do you think is there a link between bullying and school attendance? Have you seen specific cases where bullying has directly led to chronic absenteeism?
I think definitely for our young people, some of our children, our kids at school, bullying is a part of why they're not coming to school, because they don't feel safe. As I said, that's reality for some of our young people, and that's not good enough. I want to make that really clear. That's not good enough. Those young people, those children need to be in school, and we need to be doing everything we can to support them to do that. But it's a really complex issue, and bullying definitely is part of that issue for some of our young people.
Yeah. You've mentioned that schools are also struggling to meet mental health and other needs. Is there what do you need? More resourcing, support?
Well, it's more a community approach. So if we think of schools, so say the high-end mental health need for some of our young people, schools are dealing with that when it really should be outside agencies. Because of the lack of support from outside agencies, schools are dealing with that. And so the guidance counsellors who should be dealing with sort of